Welcome to the Pretty Sketchy Podcast. If you happen to catch it with a pretty sketchy start, we just did 17 minutes of awesome video with no audio. So here we are again. Just to let you know what we're doing, I'm currently working on page 2 of the book. I skipped ahead a little bit with the first page. It's nearly finished, but I better start moving on forward as far as the podcast goes. So here we are. I am here as always with Michael Marshman. What did I say before? Acclaimed writer of Hamoko King. As always, I'll be illustrating. I'm, like I said, working on page 2. So yeah, a little bit of background on page 2. We'll just summarize really quickly because we literally just talked about this about 5 minutes ago. It's an expositional page where this is a rough draft I've done, where Niso and her grandfather, he's communicating his vast knowledge onto her, and sort of letting her know who she is and what she's capable of. Very subtly, but you'll see a very fast progression here because Michael wanted to move through a lot of this sort of background stuff pretty quickly. So that's basically it. As you can see there, the layout that I'm working on, starting from scratch again. So yeah, we were just discussing Jessica Jones. And is there anything else you wanted to talk about that, or should we start from the beginning? Working out the kinks. Actually, before we move on, can I just ask something about the book? We had a bit of a discussion at one point about Nissa, her style, through her ages, right? And there was something we're talking about her hair. Was it that her hair starts long and gets shorter as she gets older? Okay, cool. So young Nissa here, like I've drawn her in the preliminary sketches with pretty short hair. So you want long little girl hair, essentially. Yep. Okay, yeah, that's it. That works. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, cool. All right. Getting into the mind of the writer. I get it. Cool. All right, cool. So yeah, getting back to Jessica Jones, we were saying that we felt, both of us, I believe, felt that, David Tennant was a little oddball to begin with, but sort of developed into the role really, really well. And that it was interesting that it was Marvel on a small scale, unlike the cinematic universe. I think they're trying not to tread on those toes too much, and work on developing a different style for the TV universe. That's yeah, it's much more grounded. They always have the movies in the peripherals. They're always talking about the events. They talk about they don't really name drop, but they call people the big green guy or the guy with the hammer. Which I feel is a little strange. Like, surely they can say the names. You know what I mean? I don't know. Everybody who hasn't watched the Avengers, yeah, I see. Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. He's just the scary guy destroying things with a hammer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a fair call, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. What was the quote? Fuck you, I'm Iron Man. Yeah. Secret identity style. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right. So where were we? Where'd we leave off? Oh yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. I guess, you know what? God bless meters. Hey, I'm looking at it going, there should be something bouncing around on the screen here, indicating audio, and there was just nothing. So, but yeah, okay. So, yeah. Do tell. Yeah. How much did it cost you? Okay, they're good like that. I got to say, the boys down there are pretty good, especially with us because they know us. Jesus. Now, one of the things I actually put down to talk about here, topic of conversation, because like I was saying, well, no, strangely, As I was saying, like earlier before we were rudely cut off, we've come a little bit better prepared this time. I took some notes. Marshman didn't. But, it's cool. It's cool. It's all up here. So, yeah, one of the things I actually touched on that I was going to talk about today is quirky comics. Like comics that aren't the mainstream, the ones that sort of speak to you and me, I suppose. And, I mean, I guess the universal one that we both are interested in, at least somewhat, is I Hate Fairyland. Not your typical sort of comic fare. It's very cartoony. But, like, definitely not, and very, very comic fan themed. To be honest, I think a lot of people probably dismiss it for the art style, which is really sad. Because to me, actually, like I've said this before, I think Scotty Young, as much as he has a controversial style when it comes to traditional comic book readers, he's one of the greats, man. His composition and stuff is brilliant. But I got all into that last time. I don't want to rehash that. But what I was getting at is, the books I tend to be drawn to aren't so much the big two, I tend to like quirky things, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, because they're quirky, and I'm kind of a quirky sort of dude, but also they generally tend to be short runs, which I kind of find attractive. And when it's a short run, typically that means you've got one artist, one writer for that entire run. And we've talked about before how it really I find it really jarring when they switch up artists halfway through a story, which is why I got out of, I was collecting Batman, Superman from the get-go, and, a few other things I've sort of let, basically they become dead runs to me because I'm like, well, I'm not engaged with this. I didn't sign up for this artist, you know what I mean? And so... I found it's funny you should say that. I actually have it with me right now. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This book shouldn't exist. This is Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. It's a crossover book where you've got two Kurt Russell characters existing in the same universe due to some portal, which to be honest is beautifully explained in like. Big Trouble in Little China is like a supernatural sort of book. Movie. And there's a little bit of pan-dimensional magic and stuff involved, but essentially what it comes down to is Kurt Russell. What's his name? Jack Burton, who's from Big Trouble in Little China, and Snake Plissken from Escape from New York are actually the same guy in two different dimensions. Right? They're both the same. Being. Just two different iterations of the same being, which is why they're both badasses and shit, But they get his little Chinese buddy from Big Trouble in Little China does some magic to summon Snake Plissken, but actually because he screws up the incantation, it summons Snake Plissken from a different dimension, which happens to be Jack Burton, And so they both sort of end up being in the same place at the same time, and it's just like we've got characters from two movies from the 80s that haven't been referenced in pop culture basically since then. I mean, everybody sort of knows a little bit about both. But who greenlit this book? Who went, you know what, I've got a great idea. And then someone went, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. Let's put money into that, But it's fucking genius. And I mean, there's probably like 3 people who've walked into the comic book shop, saw this on the shelf and went, I need that in my life. And I'm one of them, and I love that people are out there doing this, doing God's work. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, man, did you read my notes? Because I got it right here. I went through my boxes and I pulled out all the quirky ones. And again, this is something that shouldn't exist. Archie really should have died like 30 years ago, a slow and painful death. But Archie versus Sharknado is the other one I picked up. I picked up these entire runs because you can. They're like 4 issues or 6 issues long at best, and you can pick them up. It gives you something you can be excited for the next 4 or 5 weeks, or 4 or 5 months, to pick up in your pull list or whatever. That it's just gonna finish and it's gonna be tied up and they'll move on to something else, and you've got a cool collection that's probably a good place for realistically for people to start collecting comics. Because it can be daunting coming in on like a book that's up to issue 300. You know, or even issue 10. Because then you've immediately got to go back and hope that they've got back issues in stock, and then you got to chase stuff and all that sort of thing. But these are just a handful of issues that tell one arcing story that's goofy and interesting. The artwork's usually reasonably good as well. They put good artists on them and stuff like that. And even just little things like Archie versus Predator, there's like little nods to the movie as well. Like just like, I think it was Blaine or Blair or whatever, the big guy from Predator is just working at the bar. You know what I mean? And he's just saying stuff that's straight out of the film. Things, just quirky things like that. And I think that's great. The other one I grabbed was Batman 66, which to be fair, I haven't... This is still an ongoing series. This story arc in particular, I think, was 6 issues from memory. But this is the one written by Kevin Smith and Ralph Garman, who, if anybody who listens to Hollywood Babylon podcast knows, Ralph Garman is the world's biggest Batman 66 fan. He's actually good friends with Adam West. He's responsible for Adam West getting a star on the Walk of Fame because he felt like it was a massive injustice that it didn't exist already. So he basically put everything in motion to get it done and raise the money and everything, because it costs like $25,000 to get a star on the Walk of Fame. And he's like, there's no way Adam West is paying for that. And he did whatever he had to do to get the money and stuff. So, but when you read this, it reads exactly like a pitch perfect storyboard of an episode that was made in 1966. It's pitch perfect. The comedy's the same. The art style's the same. The covers themselves are just works of pure genius. But it's just like, and again, like, to be perfectly honest, from basically what I've heard and stuff, Kevin Smith had very little to do with it, other than just basically producing it, getting Ralph Garman involved, because they apparently DC approached him and said, you want to do a Batman 66 run? And he said, I've got just the guy for you, let me get Ralph onto this. And then they said, cool. I feel like, he reckons like 2 days later, Ralph's like, I've got the script. And he's like, oh, we're going to work on the script. And he goes, no, I've finished it. It's done. Here it is. And it was beautiful, man. And this one's actually, there was a back in 66, there was a Green Hornet Batman 66 crossover episode. This is a second part to that. So it follows on perfectly from the TV series as well, which is genius, But this is what I'm talking about. Like these, again, small runs. You can probably come across artists you wouldn't typically pick up, and writers, obviously, and you just sometimes find gems, but there's essentially what I'm getting at is there's more out there than just your Batmans and Supermans, and sometimes they're very worthwhile, Yeah. So one of the questions I was actually going to ask is what sort of books do you collect that you might think that's kind of my thing? I don't know that I'd recommend it to anyone else, but it really sort of tweaks my bean. You know what I mean? Really? Oh yeah, no, I get that. You know what I mean? But it's just like, I understand. Like I look at Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. First thing I did is took a picture of the cover and sent it to my brother because I know he'd be so into that. But it's not the kind of thing I'd be like, hey, you need to pick this up to everybody I meet in the street. You know what I mean? I know that this is specifically like, it's a little bit too quirky for the mainstream, I guess. And if someone was just, contrary to what I actually just said, if somebody was getting into comics, I probably wouldn't say, you need to pick this one up. But do you know what I mean? Like just like something that's maybe, you picked up on a whim, so to speak, Yeah, you saw the cover, thought that looks interesting, or maybe just, I don't know, based on another book you've read, artist, anything like that. Probably should have broached this with you before we went on air. Yeah. Okay. I'm not familiar. Hackslash. The name does actually sound a little bit familiar, but I don't. You're gonna have to fill me in. Yeah. Okay. Like ones we know, or just like aftermarket sort of. Okay. Yeah. Oh no way. I guess that's why the hack and slash comes from. Like it's all those slasher villains. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yep. Yep. Mm. So clever writing is essentially the order of the day. Yeah, yeah. It's like because if anything, like that horror genre has rules that you can then distort and corrupt to make an interesting storyline. You know, perfect example. Joss Whedon represent. What sort of art style would you say if you had to describe the art style? Okay, yeah. As far as realism on a scale of one, like, is it cartoony? Is it sort of pretty accurate representation of the characters? Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, yeah. Hmm. Mm-hmm. It's daunting. Yeah. You'll never get them back. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that happened to me. Sadly, my friend was like, "You need to get into Preacher," and admittedly, I do. Um, but he was like, "Yeah, yeah." But like he gave me the things. I just literally, one of those. What do they call those green bags that you get from the supermarket? It was that packed full of just graphic novels, and I'm like, and I read about half of the first one. I thought, man, this is really good, and then I never picked up another one. And I was like, and I felt so bad after a certain period of time. I just had to give them back because I just wasn't going to get through them. And I think that's the problem with being a bit of a Johnny come lately. You missed out on all this good stuff, but there's no way you're going to get into it. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 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 Sounds like time well spent, if you ask me. Yeah. Um. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to figure that out. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I did. The very first thing I did in Skyrim, which was probably a huge mistake, was just turn left and run. you know, and that's why I never really got that far in Skyrim because that's the problem with open world games for me. I'm too easily distracted. You know what I mean? It just doesn't end well for me. I'm just always The Witcher 3. Yeah, again, same deal. I tried to stick to the campaign, and just didn't. And again, the game suffered for that because, me and time, I don't have any, and so I didn't get invested enough in it because, I was constantly off just running from place to place and never really getting anything done, not achieving anything. Time management is the order of the day in these open world games, that's for sure. The order du jour. Yeah, like you're. Yeah, I mean, you invested a lot of hours into a lot of those games. To be fair. Yeah, ladies. That. Did you read my notes? Jesus. It's like you're being psychic. Everything I've written down, you've just brought up. Dude, I've set it up. I used it last night. I'm happy to report did not puke once. And like, cause me, dude, I'll puke at the drop of it. I could puke right now, honestly. Just sitting here. And I gotta say two things. One, I actually pushed the limits. I played all of the games that I. No, well, see, okay. I avoided Drive Club because I know at a conference I was at that actually made me sick. And to be honest, a few other people I've been, because there was a review embargo, so there was nothing about any of the games. I was trying to figure out, because I knew I was getting one, and I was trying to figure out what games I was going to get for it. And because I had no idea, I hadn't seen, other than titles and stuff, I hadn't really followed much of the releases and stuff. And the reason for that is there wasn't any information around because there was review embargoes. Sony wouldn't let anyone review anything. Until it launched, and the games I was really interested in was Eve Valkyrie. That looks insane, and Riggs, which are two games I didn't get to try, and I was really keen on. So I busted out a few demos. I eased myself into it last night and played a couple of things that I knew there wasn't going to be much motion, and they went okay, and I was like, cool, everything's good. The only issue I had was this is just me, I run hot, right? So I tended to fog up the lenses a little bit. Every once in a while I had to stop, wipe the lenses down and go again, which has always been a thing with me. Like when I play paintball, same thing. I can never see anything, my just fogged straight up. So that was good. I was happy with that. And I'm like, okay, I'm aware that I'm probably going to get sick, so I'm just going to take it easy, but I'll give Valkyrie a go because I had a demo of it and played it. And that, if anything was going to make me sick, it was going to be that one because it's full 3D space motion. So you're in a fighter, you can any angle, loops upside down, shooting, and you lose track of where you're going because you're following somebody you're targeting. So it's tough to maintain just a straight heading, or keeping it kind of leveled out. You're flipping, doing barrel rolls and stuff, just trying to hit the target. And what I've found is if I'm aware of what I'm doing and I focus on if I just keep focused, it's like when you're in a car. If you're driving in a car and you're paying attention to your surroundings and stuff like that, you tend not to get sick. If you lose focus or if you're reading something or you stop thinking about it, you're not actively thinking about stuff, that's when you start to get nauseous. And so as long as I maintain focus on my spatial awareness, I didn't have a problem, and that was kind of like, what was like, to me, that was the lesson. And so I played that. I played Kitchen, which is a Resident Evil demo, a bunch of other stuff. I played Riggs. Riggs, I did have one or two moments of queasiness, but that's a game where the movement is really random. Like at least with Valkyrie, it's smooth. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like a roller coaster. You're flipping and stuff like that, but there's no jagged movement. Riggs is an arena-based football sort of shooter kind of mech thing. You know what I mean? You're in these very sporty-looking mechs, and that one, because you can double jump and you can spin in the air while you're jumping and you land and run and you're sort of panning left and right really quickly to try and shoot things. there was a lot more motion that is a little bit more dangerous, Having said that, again, I realized as soon as I sort of started feeling the bottom drop out, I started focusing again on being spatially aware, and it went away. It's just a matter of maintaining focus, understanding your limits, and if you reach your limits, backing off or stopping. Haven't played Drive Club again, but I feel like a lot of people online have said that made me sick. So I think it's just a bad port. There's a lot of factors that come into play with VR as far as motion sickness goes, and I think. Yeah. It Yeah, but the thing is that the graphics take a serious hit with VR. And I'll say this not across the board, just with that game. And again, a lot of other people have said that too. The reviews are sort of going, well, it's kind of basically described it how I did it. It suffers. Now Valkyrie looks fucking amazing. And you would expect that because I don't know. Have you seen any graphics from that? It's like imagine you're sitting in your ship. You can see your cockpit. You can look around. The visual fidelity is amazing. It's actually better than I remember. I remember sort of trying to compare it to the Vive because at conference I played them very close to each other, and I think I might have in my head mixed it up a little bit because to me, the visual fidelity of the VR is actually better than the Vive. And I didn't understand why until I watched a review this morning by Tested. The guys, they sort of work in peripheral with the guys from... what's that show where they blow shit up all the time? Mythbusters. Adam Savage has this other show on YouTube that he works with this another guy. And they just sort of do things like one-day builds and things like that. I'm pretty sure Tested is part of that sort of series of shows. But two of the guys from there did a full review on the VR. And to be honest, they had some really good things to say. They had a few not so good things to say, which is mostly to do with the motion tracking. That, while they said is actually, it's actually really good. It's good enough. But compared to the Vive, which uses like laser sensors and all that sort of stuff for real-time motion and things, it's not quite as good as that. Of course, they two very different things. Yes. Yeah, and I mean, it's tough to sort of gauge because there is a lot of crossover. Like Eve was actually it was a poster child sort of game for the Oculus when it came out because it works really well. Okay, the Vive is like you said, it's a big open world, open space sort of system where you can move around a space, which is fantastic. But how many people do you know who have a room that they can set up in that regard, like where there's nothing that you're going to bump into? You essentially need like a large bedroom with nothing in it, and which is essentially meaning that you've devoted an entire room in your house or your space wherever you are just to VR and nothing else. Whereas the Oculus, as far as I know, I've never actually used one of those. And the PlayStation VR really are seated experiences. Does that take anything away from the experience? I don't believe it does. I played everything last night sitting down. You have the option to stand up. I know with Batman, you get two choices, and you set it up before you go because you need to. The limitation really is the scope of the PlayStation camera. It only has a certain amount of scale, like left, right, up, down. So you have to make a decision. Essentially, when you set the games up, it says place your head within the square on the screen. So you have to move forwards or backwards or whatever, so that the camera is picking up your headset within right in the center of the screen. And what I found is and I'm a tall guy, so my arm span, which is the same as your height essentially, is 6 foot. So I could have both move controllers out completely at full length, and it didn't go outside the bounds. So to me, that's plenty of range of motion, you know. So I sort of tested that out and stuff. But yeah, the difference with the experiences is pretty dramatic. I think I haven't played Job Simulator, but I'm imagining that's one of those games that would probably work better in a standing situation. Although, from what I understand, it's completely playable on the PSVR. I think it just, regardless of what you have and what you don't have, I think VR in general is looking good. You've got a lot of good options, and good ones, all suited for very different things. You know, VR is a fantastic entry. PlayStation VR, I should say, a fantastic entry level system. As far as, you know, there's already 40 million systems in the world that can just plug in and use it. You don't have to go out and buy a new PC if you've already got a PlayStation 4. You know, and again, 40 million is a pretty big install base. You know, most people have one or know someone who does. So, you know, the biggest problem at the moment is getting your hands on the actual VR. Yeah, which, you know, where we work was trickier than I think our competitors. They tend to have gotten a lot more stock for whatever reason, but you know, so I think once the second wave hits, I don't think anyone's going to have any trouble getting their hands on one and testing it out to see if they like it, you know. Yeah, I hope not. I hope there's enough development in the wings. Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be a case of early adopters are the ones who run in and go, "I need this now," you know, and you know, they'll have had it long enough for it to be sitting there not doing anything unless a good game comes out, or whipping it out every time their friends come around to sort of go, "Hey, have you tried the new VR? Check out what I've got." You don't. um, Oh, hang on. He was telling me I don't even want one. I don't want it. Blah, blah, blah. I think it was more of a case of he couldn't get one, so he's telling him so he doesn't want it. He wants it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, God, is it that far away? I really want to play that. Yeah, yeah. I'm just. I reckon he needs to get it now because I just want to see a video of him in VR and Tommy punching him in the dick. Which I guarantee is going to happen. Yeah. Man, I'm amazed. In fact, after this, I'm going to totally YouTube that because I swear there's going to be 100 videos already of, you know, like even last night I was showing it off to Nat, and I put Nat in the kitchen, right? The Resident Evil horror experience thing. It's not really. I wouldn't say it's a demo because it's not really the game itself. Um, no, well, not even. You're strapped to a chair. You sort of come to. Not to give too much of the experience away. Spoilers. You come to tied to a chair with your hands bound, which is actually really handy because you're holding the controller, and so when you move the controller, your hands move with it as if you got like zip ties around them. So it feels natural. You're moving your hands and you can see your hands in front of you and you're going, oh shit. And then this dude is over in and it's a decrepit horror movie like house, you know, like with walls missing and the roof's caving in and there's just detritus and debris everywhere. And there's this dude lying there and in amongst what looks like garbage bags full of body parts. And he wakes up and he's like, oh, where are we? What are we doing? And he goes and grabs a knife and you're like, oh shit. And then he tries to cut your arms free. But then he gets attacked by this weird wraith kind of spirit chick, and it's pretty terrifying as it is. But so I'm playing it last night, and that's not even interested in this shit. I put her in that first just to sort of go, hey, this is VR, how do you like it, And immediately I had a go of it, which was kind of like, to be fair, I went, okay, I just watched it on the TV because when you're playing, the people outside can see what you're looking at. And so I'd already seen, I knew what to expect, and I was just basically just going through the motions of the demo. But seeing it in 3D is different. Even though I knew what she was going to do, there's no difference, the same experience every time. I knew what was coming. It was when that chick's waving that knife right in your face in 3 dimensions, it's a different experience. Honestly, and I wouldn't say like it was terrifying, and I wasn't going to scream or anything. But I will say this: getting back to what I was talking about, Nat has zero experience with VR except what I just showed her, and here she is. As soon as I get in there, unguarded inside the VR world, she starts fucking with me. You know what I mean? Like it's different if you go to your mate's place and you're all gamers, and you're used to them, giving you shit. She's like, as soon as like this chick's sort of walking around behind me, she's come over and started blowing on my neck and like touching my shoulders and shit. And I'm going, I know you're doing it. Stop. And then I take the headset off and she's back on the couch going, what? It's like, there's this natural determination to fuck with people who are vulnerable, So, I can just see right now when brothers are involved or best mates and everybody's there and some dude's like really engaged in something, particularly like something when Resident Evil comes out or whatever, it's going to be just mayhem, a lot of kicks in the dick because there's nothing funnier as long as it's not your dick. Oh man. But yeah, getting back to it. One thing, when I was at conference, I remember using the VR, and this time around, cause I used it a year ago as well. And I was so blown away by it. I didn't take stock on anything. And I was like, okay, this time I'm really going to focus on the visual aspect of it and try and determine how it compares to the Vive, which again, I'd used for the first time like 10, 15 minutes earlier. And the visual fidelity, I remember not being as good as it actually is. Like getting home to and I was going, okay, prepare yourself for it not being as good as you remember, blah, blah, blah. Put it on, started playing some games, and I'm like, there's basically no screen door effect. For people who don't know what that is, when you are using VR, the screen's obviously so close to your eyes, and they use lenses to separate you from that short distance of space. So it feels like what you're looking at is out there, when really it's right up here. But what that also means is that you can see pixels. And with the Vive, I noticed it dramatically. Like the graphics were beautiful, but it looks like you're looking through screen door mesh. Because you can see each individual pixel. With the VR, you don't see that. If you're really focused, sure, you can see it. And that's not to say that the visual fidelity's not perfect. There's clipping, and there's you can see like aliasing around the edges of things. There's the things that happen that are more to do with the graphics, but the screen itself the fidelity of that's amazing. And what the difference is, the other headsets, the PC ones, use LCDs. And the VR uses OLED, which uses different pixel technology, and it's got what they call subpixels, which are pixels between the pixels or something. I don't understand the technology, but it really makes a difference. And as much as the resolution of the screen isn't as high for the VR, I feel like it doesn't matter. Like when you start sort of adding up that extra technology, it's on par at least. If not, it looks a little smoother. It's almost like, this is probably exactly the wrong example, but imagine when you're playing on your TV with your PlayStation 4, it looks good. But if you remote play on your Vita, it actually looks better because you're cramming all of that 1080p into a really small screen with really great contrast ratios and stuff like that, and it looks even sharper. When realistically it should look like shit, and I think that's the difference. Like you put the way that the screen works on the VR is, even though it's not as high resolution as your TV, it actually looks a little bit better. And it certainly looks better than if you were standing that close to your TV. You know what I mean? It's really good. I've got no complaints with it at all. I haven't come across any of this motion stuff that people are talking about as far as the controllers lagging or anything like that. Everything I've done has seemed pretty good. I think people are complaining that sometimes, say you're using the move controllers and shooting and stuff like that, sometimes they jitter or, they sort of get out of sync or whatever. I haven't experienced that. But also that could be as simple as the lighting in the space that you're using. You could, you might not have your room set up perfectly, for the camera to work as good as it could. And that could be tweaking. Again, it's something that they could probably fix up with software updates, with a better algorithm for tracking. Who knows, Yeah, testing it out. Yeah. There you go. We've reached the limit of shit. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, and again, I've read a lot of people having opinions online and opinions that just don't make sense. Saying, "Oh, like this is," it's. I read something this morning that just annoyed me because it was clearly someone who didn't know what they're talking about. But unfortunately, when you've got a voice on the internet, it's out there and people can take it on board. And I'm like, what you're saying, I would. In fact, it was almost the point where I'm like, have you even fucking used it? Like, you're given this opinion, but it doesn't sound like the experience I'm having, Yeah, but either way, time will tell. And the other thing too, I would almost put money on the fact that if there's not another generation of the VR in, say, 12 months, I reckon they'll come up with a different tracking technology. And the reason they probably haven't implemented it now is there's already an install base for... a lot of people in the market may already have Move controllers from back in the day. I know I did. I didn't have to buy them. Or this technology, they could throw two of these controllers in at a pretty cheap rate of $119, which, to be honest, I think that's Australian. I think I saw it was going to be about 120 US. So I was expecting them to come out at like $150, but I think they've really played this one close because they could see the dollars ticking over and over. They didn't want people making the arithmetic in their head and go, fuck, it's adding up to a lot of money, because they really wanted this to be an entry level, cheapest on the market kind of thing. It is. It's not cheap, but I was talking to a customer the other day. For those who don't know, Michael and I also work in retail. This isn't what I do. But I was talking to a customer the other day who I was trying to sell it to, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, I just feel like $550 seems like a lot. I think if it was $200, I wouldn't hesitate." And I said, "Look, I understand that. Having used it, this is before it came out. Having used it, several times now, I'd say when you get your hands on it, you'll change your mind because even though it's the cheapest on the market, it doesn't feel cheap." And again, getting it home and really getting it in my hands, because I never actually touched it when I was using it. They've always got some dude there putting it on your head, taking it off again, to make sure that you're not breaking it or whatever. So having actually felt the unit, looked at the quality of just the glass and the lenses, everything just seems really like it doesn't seem like they cut any corners whatsoever. I think, in fact, if anything, I reckon they're taking a hit on it price wise. Yeah, I think they're hoping that the market will blow up and they'll make the money they're losing back. And again, there's a lot of first party software titles. They'll probably make money on that, or at least licensed titles and things. So yeah, it's one of those sort of things where it seems like it until you use it. Like you're like. I think he was thinking along the lines of how much do I want to pay for virtual reality as opposed to how much would I pay for this exact piece of hardware. And that was saying, I was telling her that story last night. She's like, oh, but, it's still $550. And I said, yeah, but you got to remember that most of the people who have the PlayStation 4 already probably spend around that much money getting that for that box. And this adds, this doesn't add like 5% of extra value to that. It really is a whole new experience. And, with the promise of even more as more software comes out. And I was listening to another podcast the other day, and they were talking about, there's not a lot of launch games and stuff, which there actually is. There's fucking heaps, considering it only just came out. And they were saying that what may happen is Sony's going to put so much weight behind this that it might even spur a lot of development for VR that spills over into the PC land as well. There'll be a lot of cross sort of play between, well, not cross play so much, but yeah. But you know what I mean? Like developers sort of going, well, now we can port it to 3 things. Maybe it's worthwhile actually developing it, Yeah, and fuck it. Sony's going to pay us money to develop it for the VR, but if we can get out of doing an exclusive, then we can sell it on PC as well to a whole other install base. So yeah, I think it's not one of those things that's going to be a flash in the pan. I think it's definitely going to be a thing for at least the next year or two. Hmm. No, of course not. No. But then again, like, look at it. This is the way I describe it to people. Everybody's got a smartphone now, and everybody plays games on their smartphone. The games that are on the smartphone, originally when they started going, hey, we can really push graphics and we can do cool shit with these. And people started going, well, let's make first-person shooters and stuff. And everybody who's ever tried one on a phone knows it doesn't work. Unless you buy an extra controller, which is cumbersome. Nobody really wants to do that. And all this, it's like it. So they adapted and they started to create games that work better with touch controls, and all that sort of stuff. So this VR is the same thing. It's not going to be a solution for every type of game. In fact, first-person shooters, I'm not even sure it's going to be that great for that. But I'll tell you what, I had a lot of fun playing. Was it Tumble or some shit? There's some game where it's a puzzle game. I played it for a few minutes last night, where you basically get the move controller and you pick up blocks and you have to stack them, and you've got heights that you have to stack them to. I think it was actually a PlayStation Move game that they've revamped, but it just feels a lot better in VR. And you literally, the controls are so sensitive that you can delicately place a block on top of another block, or like pick up like a cylinder or something and balance it perfectly on top of something else. The controls are that sensitive and they work that well that you can do that. And that was a fun game. I'd sit there and play that. And if my friends were over, if there was some sort of multiplayer thing, I'd definitely be like, dudes, you should check this out. Or at least as a gateway into VR. Like if you go, hey, this is a good game to start with because it won't make you sick. And it gives you an impression of how accurate the tracking is, and how much fun it is just to fuck around in another world, without having to be good at shooting something or any of that sort of stuff, And I mean, you're a big fan of games that aren't particularly mainstream. You grab a lot of PC games and stuff that are less than sort of AAA, Yeah. So and this is a breeding ground for those types of games. I mean, Job Simulator wouldn't exist, if it wasn't cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's a creative experience. You're playing a game, but you're still creating, Yeah. For Rooster. Achievement Hunter, sorry, yeah. Mm. Soup. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, try to actually finish stuff. Objectives, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, can you? Oh, nice. Okay, cool. I can sleep now. That's awesome. Um, yeah, I'm definitely keen to get that demo if I when I can. I haven't actually played Job Simulator, but like I said, like you said, everyone's played it, and I've seen it online and things like that. I'm just trying to think what else I've got written down here for notes. That's it, pretty much. I don't know. Hey, what can you see? Like, just to give an example of just the delay on the stream, where she's hugging Grandpa. Yeah, cool. All right, cool. That's not too far behind. Um, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we're limited by the internet. One of these days you should actually come over, have like a proper guest role. That'd be cool. Get you on camera. People can see what you look like. Ah, you're more a behind the scenes guy. What? Oh, I wouldn't say that. um, no, but yeah, I'll check it out tonight. I definitely want to. Have you looked into it? Yeah, see if you can find somewhere that will ship locally that's reasonable. But there seems to be a lot of places where you can get like logos and stuff done. For anyone playing home, we want to get we're going to art. Both Marshman and I are big Rooster Teeth fans and stuff. And I mean, I've always been a huge Kevin Smith podcast fan and stuff. And like most people who are, eventually they get into doing some form of a podcast. This is ours. But we're going to RTX Australia this February, is it? Yeah, and we thought, well, what better way to promote our podcast than to wear pretty sketchy jerseys? We're going to get NFL jerseys made up, which is Marshman's favorite item of clothing. And yeah, hey, they work. It works good. So whatever. So yeah, we're going to get some promotional ones made up to wear to this thing, and hopefully someone will notice it and decide that they need another podcast in their life. It's what I do, man. I don't even, what? I don't remember the last time I listened to the radio or even a CD, in my commute. It's just podcasts. And the problem is it gets to the point where I burn through them so much I have to find new podcasts to listen to. And so I currently have like maybe 6 or 7 I'm subscribed to. But yeah, it's to me, it's the new form of communication. You can get information out there relatively rapidly. People can subscribe to it so they can listen to it at their own pace. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm interested in video games. Yeah. 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 It's really just current events, really, and phone pranks. That's pretty much all they got, and music that nobody really wants to listen to. Except for the people who don't really have much of a, they don't really care what they're listening to. The doctor prescribed me, 40 cc's of shitty current top 40 pop. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? Who do you want to be? That's a little in joke. You want to be Schmorgan? I'll be Heckengard. There's a massive in joke there for Rooster Teeth fans again. Yeah, but hopefully that'll get us a little bit more attention as well. So we'll see. If not, it won't get us attention. It might get a few giggles. from people who long-time listeners. Schmorgen Heckengard. Yeah. Yes, but this definitely needs to happen. This can't be one of those things that it's February and we're like, oh, we never did that. We should have done that. You know. Yeah, plenty of time. So yeah, the last panel here I'm working on is, I'm just starting now, is the bottom, where I've decided to sort of do the flying along the sidewalk, and you can only see shadows. I can't remember if that was in the brief or not, but yeah, either way, I'm going to take credit for it, so fuck you. Okay, so excellent writing, man. Like, I like what you did there. Yeah, so shadows. See, this is the problem. This is how long it's been since I actually looked at the brief. Michael went to the trouble of doing a page breakdown for all the pages about what panels where and stuff like that, which then I go over and say, okay, realistically, I can't do that, or this won't work, or whatever. Yeah, but it gives it helps with like if I can draw anything in the world, I'll sit there and agonize over that for a long time. If I'm given a pretty accurate sort of idea of what to do, I can then tailor that and go, okay, well, I can't do that, but this is something close, and that helps me fundamentally, just to get through, even just getting started with a panel, sometimes just text on a page isn't enough. So yeah, or just dialogue. I mean, and I mean, that's the same with, I guess, when you're shooting a script on, like, for film or whatever, everyone's got a great idea of how it's going to look, but then you get to a real world practical location and you've got to adapt and go, okay, well, this would look good. Hey, let's use that to our advantage, or this is cool. It's the same thing with drawing. It's, this may not look good on paper. Great idea in theory, but it's too convoluted, or there's too many panels on the page, or there's going to be too much there and not enough room for dialogue, all that sort of stuff. These are concessions that you have to make, and sort of we sort of do them as we go. But Michael was good enough to, like I said, write a bunch of like basically page planners, just to give me a starting point, which is cool. Yeah, that's right, exactly. And hopefully I'm sort of hitting the mark and not some primary school down the street. Yeah. Anyway, better probably leave it at that. We might have to cut it a bit short because we fucked up earlier on. But actually, does it say here how long we've been streaming? 58 minutes. There you go. That's almost an hour. I'm happy with that. Cool. So just wanted to say, I wrote an outro thing. So I'm giving you a glimpse behind the curtain, people. So yeah, I just wanted a few things that I wanted to sort of say. Thanks for watching. Our podcast is brought to you by CoreyWyerArt.com. That's where we host the podcast and everything like that, and where I keep most of my art outside of this. If you're watching the stream but you want to listen to us on the bus or on the train, or in your car, or search for us on iTunes under Pretty Sketchy Podcast. If you're an audio listener but you want to see what I'm actually doing, as opposed to just hearing me pencil scratching on paper, just search for Pretty Sketchy Podcast on YouTube and you'll find us there. So thanks again, Michael, for tuning in. Cool. We'll see you guys in a fortnight, 2 weeks. Yeah, maybe with audio. Catch you later. Bye. I love you.